Okay, hello everyone, my name is Paul. I've been an English teacher for quite a long time. I've decided to start making some revision guides for students and putting them on YouTube. So this is the very first one that I've ever done. But what I'm going to be doing today is looking at some key quotes from An Inspector Calls, which is a play that I love to teach and I try to make as interesting as possible for my students. So I'm going to look at each character from the play and look at 3 key quotes from each character and just talk you through them, why they're important quotes, why the characters say them, why Priestley might have got his characters to say them as well. And then lastly, Gerald, the young man about town within the play, he's talking to the inspector in Act 2. And he's talking about the role of women in society, because gender with Sheila and with Mrs. Burling is really important in this play as well, which I've touched upon much earlier on in the video. So Inspector says you think young women ought to be protected against unpleasant and disturbing things, and Gerald replies to that, well, yes. So he feels that someone like Sheila shouldn't be part of these kind of conversations if they're unpleasant, they're disturbing. They should be protected, they should be treated like children. So because she's a woman, she should be treated completely differently. So Gerald's quite sexist attitudes, what we'd call sexist now, come through here, and the inspector questions it, and he then replies back to Gerald with this idea that, well, Eva wasn't protected from unpleasant and disturbing things, so how can you possibly say that? So Gerald's made to look like a fool, and every time Gerald tries to stand up for himself against the inspector, he's quite quickly shot down. And at some points in the play, he does seem quite sympathetic to what the inspector's saying. The way that he treated Daisy, the fact that he gave her lodgings, that he took her in and he gave her money to look after herself once they split up, does show that he has some sympathy and some sort of conscience. But the way that he behaves towards the end of the play shows that he's not that different to Mr. and Mrs. Burling in terms of his attitudes towards society. He talks about his relationship with Daisy in quite some detail. He says that it was inevitable that they had a relationship. She was young and pretty and warm-hearted and intensely grateful. I became once the most important person in her life. So for Gerald, he can play the knight in shining armour. He can be the hero to this woman. So it's almost like he's going on a little bit of an ego trip. But he does have genuine feelings for Daisy. We can see that in the fact that he has to leave the Burling household to think about what's happened. But at the same time, this is again about his power and his abuse of power, that he can play this role for someone like Daisy, and it's possibly more about him than it is about her, but that's open to your own interpretation. Okay, and then right at the end of the play in Act 3, when they discover the inspector is not a real inspector and they found out that actually no one has been taken to the infirmary that night, that's when Gerald suggests to Sheila about giving her back her engagement ring. So just like Mr. and Mrs. Burling, he wants to brush everything under the carpet. He wants to forget about what's happened and to pretend it never happened and to go back to the way they were, the way things were. And he even says, everything's all right now, Sheila. So forget about it. It's nothing happened. It's all fine. Forget about it. Let's just brush it under the carpet. But of course, she can't do that because she's got a conscience and she still did the things she did. And it's what Eric said. He still did what he did, and everyone still did what they did. Yet Gerald here is determined to try and get rid of all that and pretend it never happened. And of course, he's the one who rings the infirmary, despite the damage that could possibly do to his reputation. He's the one who rings them. Okay, so I've been through every major character in the play. I haven't spoken about Edna. I know that lots of students love Edna, but she doesn't really say a lot, and she is an important character in many ways, but because she doesn't say anything, I can't really talk about her in terms of key quotes. But I hope you found the video useful. If you click on the links at the end of it, you'll go to my shop with lots of revision guides and resources for both students and for teachers. You can subscribe to my videos, which I'm hoping to make quite a few from now onwards. You can go to my Twitter feed, my Facebook feed, there's all sorts of things at the end. Thank you for listening, I hope that was useful.